Thank you so much for joining Coffee Conversations with Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center. We welcome back Mark Adams. We are so excited to talk with him this morning about my loved one has been diagnosed with cancer. What now? Because that is a loaded question. What does that look like for the person who loves someone who was diagnosed with breast cancer? And so, Mark, if you could just remind us of your story so that people who are unfamiliar with you can become familiar.
Yes, absolutely. So my name's Mark Adams. I'm 36 now. At the time, I think I was 30, 32, 33, just turned 33 when Stephanie was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was very young, 26 at the time. So it was all new to me. Like we had just gotten married less than a year before, and it's just kind of whoa, So the whole world kind of got turned upside down, um, and felt, a little bit alone, a little bit at loss, not really knowing what the road ahead was. Like there's no way this could really be going on, and had some, did a kind of a trial run. Left Brookwood, went to UAB, did a trial run to hopefully take care of the cancer, shrink the cancer cell, and then do the removal. Well, after the removal, there was still the disease in the lymph nodes and then the size of the tumor. They elected to go ahead and do chemo and radiation. So, holy cow! Now I didn't know we are going to have to do this, and so I didn't know really at that time what questions to ask because it was all new to me. My dad had walked the journey with my mom. She had breast cancer, but wasn't nearly as invasive, and I was very young. And I leaned on him for some guidance, but at the
Mhm.
same time, I didn't know what to ask, and his journey was a lot different than mine. So he was able to give me a little bit of heads up of some things and some
Mhm.
guidance as far as note taking or recording conversations with the umpteen million doctor's appointments you have. Um, and then so we went head first into that journey. Um, and then Stephanie elected to do the cold cap, penguin cold cap. So then we introduced this whole other thing, like, okay, so we're going to freeze your head during your treatments, and poor thing, just negative 30 degrees on that head for 8 to 10 hours the day of the treatment. And so then I took on a lot of responsibility, like, oh my gosh, if she loses her hair, it's going to be my fault because I didn't do this cold cap right. So I took it pretty serious and walked alongside her in that, and did the best that I could with the knowledge and resources that I did have at the time. And then towards the end of her journey, which, by the way, she kept a lot of her hair. She wouldn't say she did, but she did. She kept a lot of it and looked great. But towards the end of it, she invited me to the Forge Co-Survivors Allowed meeting. And then that's when it kind of opened my eyes. Like, there are other guys around my age dealing with this. And so I reached out to Janida, to, hey, if any of these guys want to just hit me up and talk or ask questions or do anything, I'd love to connect with them. And then that unfolded and led into the co-survivor support group, um, in which that's been going on for a little over a year now. And we've had some attendance and have had a lot of good come from that. But through this whole journey and couple that with my experience, we've talked and had that idea of, okay, so maybe we could set something up of what now to allow that platform of somebody like in my case. I didn't know the type questions to really ask. I didn't really know other people in my same situation that could either relate or could help give me some sort of, hey, you may experience this may come up, these emotions may come up, those type questions. And that's where I'm at today. And I hope to be able to play a role for somebody to answer some questions or give some heads up to help someone go in there not as blind, and be able to have some kind of expectation in front of them.
And you have done that. I want you to remember that you have been doing that for a while now. I know that you envision a world of men that call you daily,
I'd
but
love to. Yeah.
but you know, it can take a lot for men to feel like that's a safe space for them. They're
Yeah.
not natural talkers like we are as women. But I will say, it has been such a blessing to have you be a support to the men who were ready, okay, or who needed another man to talk to, or as just a significant other, or someone who just loves someone with breast cancer. You know, because what do we say to the daughters of women who have breast cancer and I have to now take care of my mom or my grandmother, or I have to take care of my daughter who has breast cancer. And so, kind of leaning into the title of this conversation about, well, what now? So, you know, what's something that, you know, is a typical response, do you think, or that you've seen or experienced when someone loves someone with breast cancer? And I mean, I can imagine how it hits you and how it hits the person who has it. Um, when they hear that, you know, what is the immediate thing that you think that they should take advantage of? Like, hey, I just found out my loved one has cancer. Like you said, I mean, I don't know what these things mean. I don't know what this treatment means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do and what that entails and what's going to happen to them. So many different questions. So when that person is diagnosed, what is something that you think would be really helpful for that person in the beginning to start kind of processing the journey that they're about to embark on with their loved one?
First, I'd say just to talk, just to go ahead and talk to them because early on, I don't think, I know I certainly didn't know the type of questions to ask because I was so uh, not knowledgeable on this journey. So I had no idea what to even ask. So I'd say firstly would be, you know, me just introduce myself and say, hey, I'm going to wish you the best for this journey coming ahead, and I'll walk alongside you as much or as little as you'd like. I know when we were diagnosed, when she was diagnosed, that we wanted to first go get a second opinion to never just take the immediate, okay, this is the person that we're going to use. We went ahead and reached out to another clinic to find out, hey, is this the only option? Are there other resources or options out there? So that'd be my first step would be to encourage them to seek out a second opinion. And then weigh out your feel. You know, hey, this is your body, or it's your loved one's body. Let them make the choice where they're comfortable the most, and just trust that process. And then inform them that hey, be prepared. You're going to have a lot of appointments in a short amount of time and a lot of information in a very short amount of time. And then kind of give them the input of note taking, maybe record the conversations because you're going to forget something or you're going to wish you had remembered or wish you had written down what the doctor said. So writing down and recording the conversations is very beneficial. And then some of the more intimate parts of it, as far as, you know, once they get to the reconstruct or the removal process, I know, you know, hey, they're going to hook these tubes up and it's going to have drainage of bodily fluids that you're going to have to
Mhm,
look at and going to have to record and drain. It's not
mhm,
pretty. It's not. And just to give them that raw, this is what's coming up on that side of things, and then talk to them about just being
mhm,
there as much as you can, and supporting your loved one at all costs, really, because it's not an easy thing. There's so many different physical and emotional things that come along with that. So I would definitely start by just giving them the high level. Here's what was ahead for my journey. Yours may be different, so I'm not prepared to be able to answer every single question.
mhm,
But be prepared to just listen for one. If there's an answer I don't know, I can seek out, you know, guidance from other people in the Forge community saying, hey, I have this person who just found out and here's what their so, you know, quote unquote treatment plan is right now. Have you had this experience? So I could get the answers to that person. So that's kind of the high level uh, conversations that I'd like to have.
I think that you brought up something that I don't know that people really think about as much, right? Like when a loved one is diagnosed with breast cancer, you know, your initial thought is, you know, chemo. Oh my gosh, you're going to lose your hair and you're going to lose your breast.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that you you pointed out like the details of it and the reality of it, right? Because it's more
Mhm.
than just you go and have surgery, you stitch up and you go home. It's the maintenance of the care and the things that you have to assist with
Mhm.
when you go home, like the drains and all of those other different things. Um, aside from the emotional component, that's an addition too. And that can be a lot for someone, right? Like if I'm not a blood person, don't ask me, if unless it's do or die, like I'm
Right.
a blood person.
Right.
That can be really triggering for someone, like what if somebody's been through something prior to this diagnosis, and that's a lot for them. And so being able to kind of have those conversations, but in a safe space for the co-survivor, right? The
Right.
person who loves them, because it's really hard to feel like, okay, I can have this conversation with you as the survivor because you're going through it. How dare I complain about my journey? And this is your cancer,
Right.
And so being, how important is it to have a space for individuals to feel like I have a right to feel the emotion that I feel, and that it is valid, even though I'm not the person with the cancer.
Right. Right. Um, I definitely like to invite myself to be able to ask the questions first. I typically wouldn't ever jump right into those raw details and make somebody
Mm-hmm.
feel uncomfortable with us. So certainly like to talk with them first. But as far as the emotions go, I think every emotion is completely okay to share in the right space. There was emotions that I definitely wouldn't have really shown in front of Stephanie while she was going through it because she already had enough on her plate. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to share the frustrations I was having or the stress I was having or the responsibilities that I felt because I don't want to put that burden on her and make her feel like now she's the cause of all this that I'm going through. So being able to have that person to share those emotions with, I think is very crucial during that co-survivor's journey because they got
Mm-hmm.
the survivor has their own battle to deal with, and
Mm-hmm.
I think if we start showing negative emotions on top of that, that I don't think any good could come from that.
Mm-hmm. But it is important to validate what you feel and what that
It
co-survivor
is
feels, which is, we're very grateful for you opening and hosting the space to do that because, like I said earlier, how ideally people don't go to the person who is diagnosed with cancer and complain about what it meant for them, because they're the one who's having to live through that cancer. They're having to do the treatment and the surgeries, whereas the caregiver also experiences that alongside them, and it looks different. They're on the cancer journey with you, but it looks different. Just being able to say, hey, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I am worried about working, because sometimes
Mhm.
people don't have a big support system, and sometimes they have to be the person that takes off work, but then also the person who has the cancer is off work. So there are so many different components to that. For somebody who's worried from that side of things, when they're worried about employment and when they're
Yeah.
worried about who's going to take care of the kids or who's going to help with this and help with that, all of those norms change. What advice would you give to those individuals who go to that mindset? Because some people don't automatically jump to what it means medically. They jump to,
Right.
I don't have no PTO saved up for this.
Right.
What do I
I
need to
mean,
do?
that definitely comes up, and then that allows me the opportunity to say, "Hey, I really would encourage you and your loved one to really dive into Forge and really open that door and see what they could have to offer too." Because Forge has an ample amount of resources available to be able to help out people in those cases where I don't have a way to get my loved one. She can't drive. He or she can't drive. I can't get off work. Well, there might be somebody at Forge that could hop in there and drive your loved one to that appointment. Or heck, call me. If I'm available, I'll do what I can, or I'll help find somebody. We'll get you that. We'll get them to that appointment. So there's that opportunity there to introduce Forge and to help them push into that and open those resources.
Well, Mark, we really enjoyed this conversation. Do you have any final thoughts that you would leave individuals with? My loved one has been diagnosed. what now? What is something that you hope that everyone takes away from this conversation that needs support as they support another one going through a breast cancer journey?
That you're not alone. There's other people that have been there and have the same questions and have the same unknown and weird feeling of the unknown and the fear of the unknown. That have been there in your steps before. That would also love to be able to help you through that and to be able to talk to you and maybe help give you some guidance and some look aheads for you to maybe at least ease that tension mentally of those unknowns. So
Mm.
just reach out.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And I know that people are going to continue to reach out. Again, I think it's a concept that people don't even think about because sometimes people are in tunnel vision, like I'm just gonna get them through this. I've got to do what I got to do, and they don't think about what they need. They don't think
Mm-hmm.
about how they can be their best selves and take the best care of themselves as they go through this. So thank you so much, Mark. It's always a pleasure to have you, and I'm sure we'll have you again at some point doing something aside from doing the support group for co-survivors, which is called the Co-Survivor Circle now. So
Absolutely.
really excited about that because it'll be a virtual opportunity with quarterly outings. So there'll be multiple ways in which individuals can connect with others who have supported someone through breast cancer.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.